I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money, and this is Filmmakers On. I've found over the last year that some of the best indie film marketing advice comes from other mediums: YouTube gurus, self-publishing authors, other entrepreneurs. Today, I'm talking with Kerry Beyer, who has experience in several different mediums. He started out as an actor and a photographer, transitioned into a successful indie director, and then transitioned again to a very successful author. He's going to drop a ton of marketing knowledge on us, as well as tips for optimizing your marketing output, regardless of whether you're writing books or making movies. Let's do the interview thing. So today I'm here with filmmaker, director, actor, musician, Kerry Beyer. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for speaking with me today. I really appreciate what you're doing. You're building a strong community with a large information base, and I think that's great and what independent filmmakers need. So thanks for inviting me to be a part of this.
Oh, thanks, man. It's
Yeah.
nice to have you. Um, so you kind of came onto the independent movie scene with Spirit Camp back in, what was that, like 2009?
2009.
Damn. So
Yeah, right.
what led you into that?
So, I'd been wanting to make a film for a long time. And, at that point in time, I thought I wanted to do a horror film, and I wanted to make a B movie, but I wanted to make a good B movie that had good acting and good cinematography, and that was the goal. Just to go and have fun.
Mhm.
Uh, and I thought, hey, let's go hack up a bunch of hot cheerleaders in the woods, and that'll be fun, right? And it was. It was absolutely the time of my life.
How long was that shoot?
So that went on forever. And we got really ambitious with that project, and we did all the things that you're not supposed to do, like shooting outside at night, large cast on location, and we shot on weekends for really a year and a half, 2 years. We'd go on location for like a week at a time and rent cabins and shoot, and then we'd come back and edit the footage and figure out what we needed to do next. And then trying to schedule, I think we had 25 cast members. And so trying to coordinate that, was difficult. So, we might go a month or two without shooting and then get everybody back together and go and do it again, and then have to wait till everybody's schedule, collided again. So it was a process. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it that way, but I'm glad we did that. It was a learning experience and a really, really good time, really fun, great group of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I like those stories about, the people that are like bootstrapping it up. We kind of, we do a couple of weeks here, we pull together some more money, do a couple of weeks there.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. And it creates a real sense of camaraderie, I would assume, with the cast and the crew.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because, we were on location in these cabins in the woods. So, we'd shoot, and then of course we'd party and sleep for a few hours, get up, do it all over again. And we really, it was like going to summer camp. So we really bonded,
Yeah, that sounds.
I'm still friends with a lot of the cast today. And that's 10 years, 11 years.
Oh man, so it's amazing. I think I did Edges of Darkness just like the year before that, and man, it seems like yesterday still, but yeah, it's 12 years for me.
Yeah. Cause I remember, I think the way we met was I found you had gone through a distributor that I was researching, and I found your name, and I think I emailed you or something, and then we connected that way and shared experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. And you didn't go with them, right?
No, I did. I
Okay,
did.
good.
Yeah.
So, well, shoot, let's just jump right into it then. So what did you do for distribution on Spirit Camp?
So I did it myself.
Wow.
We had a couple of offers, and none of them would have made me whole. And I said, well, let me just keep my rights. I'll do it myself.
Hmm.
And we went around to, the conventions. We did the convention circuit and festivals. And since Spirit Camp is campy, it's fun. It's got a little bit of nudity. It's, it's that kind of movie. So we sold DVDs with autographed panties. And I sold those DVDs for $29. And this is a time when people were getting $10 a DVD, and we're selling tons of them at $29. you know, it was as much that marketing element
Mm-hmm.
of going beyond just the movie and getting, you know, because I brought the girls with me to the conventions and they would dress up in the costumes and sign autographs, and you know, it was just fun.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Did you have any kind of marketing background before, or like what brought you to that?
My education is a business management major, and I've always been self-employed. I, you know, ran a photography studio for 25 years and doing commercial photography. So, you know, internet marketing and, you know, that type of thing. I wasn't ever a guru in internet marketing, but it, you know, it was necessary for me to
Mm-hmm.
learn that to survive in a business sense. And so I just tried to apply that to the filmmaking, and I really tried to look at it from what's going to bring value. You know, like if I were into this movie, what would bring value? And I remember, you know, I used to sell these off the website, and I guess my phone number was in the PayPal receipt. And I had this guy call me, and he 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 wanted to tell me how much he loved the movie. You know, he had bought it from the website, and he said, you know, I asked him how did you find it, and he said, well, you know, I was thinking about Friday the 13th, and I started Googling Friday the 13th, and then I was thinking about Bring It On, and I would Google that, and he says, for some reason your movie came up, and I looked at that, and I called my wife over, and I said, look at this, honey, and she goes, yeah, that looks interesting. Let's get that. And I said, well, did you read about it in the horror magazines? Because we had done some advertising, and you know, this guy didn't have a Facebook. He didn't read the horror magazines, but
Mm-hmm.
this was my guy. You know, he's 35 years old, looking for, you know, 80s style slasher. So it was really kind of interesting to see how people find your movie, and you know, who are they?
Right.
And I think that's the key for filmmakers is you really need to understand who is who is your audience, you know? And for Spirit Camp, it was guys, you know, 35 and over that love 80s movies, that grew up with those kind of movies and are looking for something, you know, a little campy, a little pervy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, just a good time.
Yeah, I still to this day I remember the cover box, and like somewhere on there, did it say in the vein of get
There was a
bring
quote,
it on, bring it. Oh, it was a review quote. Bring it
review
on and
quote.
Yeah, bring it on meets Friday the 13th,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And that was perfect marketing for us because I mean, that's what it is, you know?
Yeah, that had to drive some views. Do you remember what magazine that was?
I don't remember where the quote actually came from.
I guess it
I,
doesn't really
we,
matter at this
I
point.
mean,
I
because
was
there
just
was there
curious.
was a lot of online. We got a lot of online reviews, and
Hmm.
we did a full page ad in, you know, Fangoria and Rue Morgue and those kind of publications back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, so it came out in like what, 2010, or did it come out in 2009?
So we released in December of 2009. So we started production like 2 years before that, and
Yeah.
then so it ran through. We did a festival run in 2010.
How was the festival run? Was it helpful?
Um, I don't. Well, we premiered at Dances with Films, which is a
Mm,
great festival in Los Angeles.
yeah.
Uh, and so that was, I mean, for me, that was great to have my movie on Sunset, right? You know, in Los
Yeah.
Angeles, vacant. It's just all those kind of things that, you know, you want as a filmmaker.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that lent some legitimacy to the film. Like I think if you go to Netflix, we're in the database of Netflix, even though you can't rent the movie there because we never
Right.
did a
Right.
deal with them. But I think that got us into some extra publications.
Right.
It's hard to say what it does for you, really.
Well, I guess I'll put it this way. Like if you did a movie this year, well, and let's pretend COVID isn't going on.
Okay.
If you did a movie this year, would you do festivals?
I didn't do festivals with Rogue Strike, and I didn't do festivals with. I say I didn't do festivals with Killing Mr. Wright, but I mean we did a couple, but that was people that called me up and said, "Hey, do you
Yeah.
want to screen your film?" I think it's fun.
Hmm.
I think if you enjoy screening your movie in front of an audience and getting up and doing Q&As, there's definitely value in that from a filmmaker validation perspective. It's fun for your cast and crew.
Hmm.
Um, if you're going to do that, I would already have it available online if it's cool with the festivals so that people can say, hey, they can go right then and get it. Because, you know, we live in that immediate gratification society, and they're
Yes.
like, they want to find out about your film and they want to go check it out. They don't want to like, oh, hey, there's this great movie. And then 6 months down the road, they're going to forget about it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I think that's a really big change in the last 10 years where, we used to, even on independent films, you could build up,
mhm.
an audience expectation. You could start your promotion 6 months in advance. You could do a film festival thing and build it up. But today, it's like if you're I mean, honestly, I think if you're any more than a couple of weeks, you're too early.
I agree with that 100%. You're wasting your time. You're wasting all those clicks that could be somebody going to a website and buying the film or watching it. It's got to happen right away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to answer your question, it just, are you going to get personal satisfaction out of a festival run and the expense, because there's travel and submission
Mhm.
fees. And so, eh, you know,
Yeah, I'm just always curious about it. I mean, I have my opinions on it, but I've never really taken part in festivals. I think I've
mhm.
been to 3 or 4. It's just never been a thing that I was that into. So I never did it. I just went to market. But I'm always curious about people's experiences with them.
The days of taking your film to a festival and getting a deal that's going to make your life somehow complete, I think that's
Yeah.
gone if it ever really existed.
Yeah, I think even back then, there we just hear about those 1 in a million guys
Mhm.
that do make it from there, but I think it was always kind of a fallacy, kind of a false narrative.
I agree.
After Spirit Camp, you did which one? Killing Mr. Wright was next,
Rogue
or
Strike
Rogue
was
Strike.
next,
Okay,
and
I
that
want to
was
talk about that was the mostly green screen movie,
yeah,
right?
that was
Yeah.
yeah, almost all green screen. And then, well,
Wow.
we built a couple small practical submarine sets out of like foam core and LED lights,
Uh-huh.
and again, that was just another crazy idea that I had. It was a fun project we did, me and a couple of friends, and then we got Eric Roberts to come in for a
Yeah.
day and do stuff. It's totally different than Spirit Camp.
Hmm.
And looking back, if I had it all to do again, I would have stuck in one genre and just pumped out a bunch of films so people knew exactly what to expect
Yeah.
instead of bouncing all over the map and trying to be, all kinds of different things.
Yeah, honestly, that's been kind of a problem for me over the last years with these documentaries that I'm doing. Like, I'll start to get a little traction in one, and then I go and do something else,
Yeah.
and it's like you got to start all over again. Although, there's also something to be said for the self fulfillment aspect of it.
Mhm. I think all of us as creative individuals, we suffer from that, chasing the shiny object. We want to do something new and expand and it's like, but it's when you go to the store and you buy a Coca-Cola, you'd be
Hmm.
pissed off if it tasted different,
Yeah.
right? And people have expectations about what they want from a certain brand.
Mm.
And so now I'm really tightly focused on branding, like, and that's why I try to, divide the things that I do up under different banners, whatever that's going to be. If it's a different pen name or whatever,
Hmm.
I would really focus. Like if I ever get back to doing horror films, I would probably use a pen name and just that's all that director does is horror.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Like maybe you could still stay in different genres, but you have different pen names in the same way that you would as if you were like publishing.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. That's a good idea. So,
Yeah.
before we get into the publishing, going back to Spirit Camp, so I'm assuming with that release and how you were marketing it, that probably did pretty well initially.
Yeah, we did okay on that.
Yeah.
I think we got in at the right time where people still were buying DVDs. And then I put it on the streaming, and it did well on streaming. When the pay was good,
Hmm.
and so it's one of those things that I spent way too much money on that movie and way too much time. We came out okay in the end,
Hmm.
but
Took a little time.
it took a little time. Even with Rogue Strike. Rogue Strike is a fraction of the budget of what Spirit Camp was. I mean, it was just so incredibly small. And then Killing Mr. Wright was it's just a fraction of that. We made Killing Mr. Wright for $2,500.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I've settled of like, that's a good, go make your movie for $2,500. Nobody's going to get hurt financially with
Yep.
that. And you've got a chance to make some money back and go on and do another one. In this current environment, I think that's the key for filmmakers, to get as many at-bats as possible. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like, what you're doing with the documentaries. You're putting out, so many of those
Yep.
that something's going to hit.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's, I've been telling people, and I always feel like weird saying it, because it makes you sound like a opportunistic, opportunist, but filmmaking is kind of a numbers game. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care what budget you're working at. It's numbers. Like, studios put out a certain number of films expecting a certain amount to fail. The ones that succeed are going to pay for the rest of the slate. Like that. It's always worked like that.
It's a business just like anything else, and
Yeah.
you got to treat it like one.
The other thing that interested me about killing Mr. Wright, for example, that was really self-contained, right? Like, were you the lead in it?
Yes. So I was one of the leads. We shot that all in my girlfriend's house at the time.
Right.
And then we had one external location. And so we took every room in that house and dressed it differently and moved furniture around and put different art on the walls and try to make it, to cover all the different places we needed. I think we shot that in 17 days.
Oh, wow. That's a decent amount of time.
Yeah, it was a decent amount of time. And the way we had scheduled that was Monday through Thursday was on the schedule. And then Friday was a day that was open for pickup. So anything we missed during that first week, we'd pick up on Friday. And then we'd take the weekend off and then come back and do it again. And that schedule really worked for, I think, everybody, just because, it didn't make it, it wasn't crazy. We got breaks. Because
Right.
a lot of times when you're doing an independent film, you go and you're working Saturday and Sunday, and you're 17 hours a day. And I think we had one day on Killing Mr. Wright where we were in a location and it was it. We had to get our shots. And so we were there for 17 hours, but the rest were 10 to 12-hour days, which is pretty normal.
And after Killing Mr. Wright has been your last feature as a director so far, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, after 2014 and that came out, what did you transition to?
I started having some hip problems. And so I had mobility issues. I couldn't get around. I couldn't, just my days of loading in and out gear were over. And, I had to end up having a couple of surgeries. And so it just took me a long time to get through that. And there was just no way I could make a movie at that point in time. I shut down my photography business at that time. And I transitioned into writing books. I think I'm a storyteller. And so that doesn't matter whether I'm taking a picture or writing a screenplay or making a movie. I think, that's kind of where I've found myself, is just having a desire to tell stories. So I transitioned into writing books and doing that with the idea in the back of my head that, hey, I'm creating a lot of properties here that can be, adapted to the screen if need be. So, and fortunately it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit about this offline, but how did you get started with that?
At first, it was kind of weird because I was used to writing very lean for screenplays. So it's a kind of a different shift of mindset of, okay, now I got to describe everything. I've got to describe how people are reacting. I've had to describe the room, and whereas in a screenplay, it's like interior, shitty apartment, in a book.
Yeah. Joe picks up the book.
Yeah. I'm a researcher, right? I dive in and I try to soak up as much information as possible. And I think that's what I did with the books is I just started reading, the online forums and joined writing communities and really tried to figure out what was going on. And, I set a goal for myself that I wanted to be able to make a living within a year. And then I tried to, reverse engineer, okay, what do I need to accomplish that in terms of productivity and sales and, whatever.
Did you make that first year goal, or did it take a little
it took me 8 months.
Wow.
Took me 8 months
that is impressive.
Yeah, it was kind of lucky. I definitely attribute a lot of it to luck. But at 8 months, I was able to replace what I was doing photography wise. And So then I just, from that point on, it's just been this, focus of how do I, how do I improve? How do I improve my own productivity and create more product? And it's like, it's an industry that changes every couple of months. So you got to
Yeah.
stay on top of it.
Yeah.
And
To
what
stay in the
works.
forums. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that first year, how many books did you finish in that first 8 months?
7. Yeah. I think
Wow.
it took me 7 books to,
You've increased your productivity since then too, right?
yeah. When I first started, I was writing about 1,200 words a day.
Mm-hmm.
And the last book that I wrote, I was doing 5,000 words a day, and it took me 10 days to write.
Wow.
So yeah, but that took 4 years of
Yeah.
honing my craft to get to the point where I could write that fast. And I used to be a pantser where I just sit in front of the keyboard and go start to end without an outline. And then I realized I could write a lot faster if I knew where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a formula now where I sit down and I outline for 2 to 3 days, and then I get in and then I write, and I've got a really set schedule of, I get up in the morning and I start writing at 8 o'clock and I write till noon. Then I break for a couple hours for lunch and then, take care of life business. And then I get back on, 3, 4 o'clock, and I'll write till 6 or 7. If I've got my word count, then I'm done for the day. And if I don't have my word count, I go back after dinner and write till I get my word count. And sometimes that's 11 o'clock. It's definitely takes a lot of discipline. I decided to write under pen names. Like I wrote a couple books under my name, and they were, how to get into acting, how to self-tape for, actors. And those were the first 2 books I wrote. And, those were really easy to write because, it's just years of knowledge spewing out, right? And I
Right.
think those 2 books have made like $30.
I know. When you first started, when we first started talking about the self-publishing a couple of years ago, I was asking you about it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do that." And the first thing that popped to mind, I'm going to do a filmmaking book, and I'm like, it would be the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
Like
go
no,
ahead.
nobody wanted to read it, and it didn't make any money. And I was like, okay, I can't make a living doing that. And so after that, that was my first month, right? $32 was my first month.
Mm.
And after that, I was like, okay, I've got to write in a marketable genre. There's just no 2 ways about it. And I did some research, and the biggest selling genre is romance. And I'm like, okay, I can write romance. And so, I read a bunch of romance novels and made a pen name,
Uh-huh.
and I think I wrote 3 or 4 romance novels, and like instantly, I went from $32 to, you know, orders of magnitude more. Not a
Right.
livable wage, but enough to make a car payment, right? On
Hmm.
that second month of writing a romance novel. And I was like, okay, so let me keep working on that. And then I realized pretty quickly that you know I can do this, but my heart's not in romance. I got to find something else that I can write long term. And I just kind of bounced around, trying different genres, seeing what worked and seeing what I thought I could bring to that genre.
Hmm.
And really, the reason for the pen names is the branding, because when you go to this name, you're going to get romance. When you go to this name, you're going to get mystery. When you go to this name, you're going to get action adventure or whatever it is. So there's consistency there. I like that anonymity, because when somebody comes by and gives you the 1-star review and says what a horrible author you are, well, they're talking about your pen name. It's just a little bit of separation to where you don't have to,
Right.
in this day and age, it's always nice to be able to walk away from something if it goes horribly wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the major reasons that I wanted to have you on is, aside from the pen name aspect, I mean, this business model is almost identical to what I'm doing in documentaries.
Absolutely.
So
And I thought about that the first time that you brought it up. I was like,
yeah,
that's exactly what I'm doing.
I don't think I thought of it consciously, but I'm pretty sure some of my inspiration was from that and from our conversations. Cause I was seriously like, I was going full steam ahead. I was going to do the writing thing. and I had some issues with the job that I was at, and I left there, and I needed to do something I could do right now quicker, so I moved back into movies. But
Yeah.
it's always been in the back of my head.
Because I don't think it matters what type of creator we are.
Mhm.
We're all we're all, affected by the algorithm.
Yeah.
And the more content that you can create consistently, whether it's YouTube videos or movies or books, that's on brand to a specific audience, the more people are going to come back, and the more natural, organic traffic you're going to get, because right now it seems like the algorithms like that, because let's face it, the focus of every site is to get people to come back and stay on the platform.
Yep.
So that's the number one priority I think that anybody making a movie or doing anything needs to focus on is getting traffic and retaining traffic to the
Yeah.
site.
Yeah, I mean, just having this discussion, I'm saying one of my biggest areas of opportunity with the documentaries, or issues, is that I have been doing documentaries in different milieus, and it's really under the same production company name. So,
Mhm.
like, if somebody comes to Zapruder Flicks because they really liked our cannabis documentaries, and then I throw up a fighting documentary, or a dog rescue, and it's not what they came for, and then
Right.
I lose that. So I'm thinking a lot about branding out different companies for different styles of projects.
I think that's a good idea, and I think you see that mirrored, on the bigger studios where they have their little indie label that maybe it does horror, or maybe it does whatever. I don't know, but um, yeah, I think meeting genre expectations
Mm.
is absolutely the key. And one of the turning points for me of through this whole creative process is that it really doesn't matter what I think or what I think's cool or what I want to do. It has nothing to do with me, and it has to do with the audience and what do they want. And so every time I do a project now, it's like, is this going to give the readers or viewers what they want?
Mm.
And if not, how do I shape it to be that? You get to a point where, and I tell this, I ask a lot of authors that are trying to get into the business, and it
Hmm.
applies to filmmakers or anybody really, is what do you want to do? Are you doing this because you want to express yourself, or are you doing this because you want to build a career? And usually it's a little of both, but if that build a career is in there at all, you've got to be cognizant of the market. Otherwise, there's nothing wrong with going out and doing these projects just for you, but understand that it may not go anywhere, which is it's a tough thing to say.
Yeah, no, it really is, because most of us, a lot of us, got into making movies or being a creative person because somewhere in the back of the head, we wanted to be that rock star on stage. We wanted to be Quentin Tarantino, or we wanted to be Stephen King. Like, we wanted that adulation.
Yeah,
And it's hard to break out of that mindset.
it really is. Because I remember, when we made Spirit Camp, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be the one that gets us noticed and starts, and like, no.
Totally. I
And
remember the first 10 years of my career, like every movie, I was like, and I'd have the same discussion with different people over the years. Like, this year, man, this is going to be our year. We're going to do this. This is our year. Next year, this is going to be our year. Next year, this is going to be our year. And
yeah,
then eventually we're like, okay, wait a minute. How do I pragmatically make a career like with
right.
stuff that I own, or I'm not just freelancing and,
Mhm.
working under somebody else's thumb?
Absolutely. I think as soon as you can lose the ego, the better, of just, hey man, I'm gonna try to make other people happy. I've got a buddy of mine, he's done really well for himself in business.
Hmm.
And he said to me a long time ago, he said that the key in business is figuring out a way to make other people rich. And then by default, that will make you rich.
That's really
Um,
good advice.
and I think the same goes for entertainment. Figure out a way to make other people happy, and that will make you happy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in your relationships with people, whether it be, a distributor or maybe somebody that put a few bucks into your movie or whatever it
Mhm.
is, pragmatically, you make that person happy, they're going to make you happy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And then the mindset of just thinking about audience first. I mean, and
Mhm.
that took me a really long time. I mean, I was a very like self-focused filmmaker, probably the first 10 years of my career.
Yeah, I
And
think we all were.
it's frustrating for me now to see newer filmmakers with that mindset, and you're trying to tell them, but and then I think back, I was like, well, 10 years ago, if somebody would have came to me and spewed this crap that I'm saying now, I would have been like, oh, you, dude.
Yeah, I'm the same place, man. Same place. You can't tell them. I wouldn't have listened. I remember before I made Spirit Camp, I called this producer, and he was in New York. And I had seen, this is back when Blockbuster and Hollywood Video were still around,
Hmm.
and I'd see his movies like 3 and 4 copies deep in Hollywood Video, and I thought, he's making these kind of cheesy B movie exploitation flicks, and I was like, he's got to be making money on this, because that was back when they were paying money for those copies. And I looked it up. I rented the DVD. I looked him up online, and he's putting out a ton of these things. And I called him up and I said, hey, listen, I'm this photographer and I do graphic design, and I'm happy to trade services to you if you'll talk to me for a minute.
Hmm.
And he was really gracious, and he talked to me for about half an hour, and he's old New York kind of guy, and he just sounded beaten down by the business. He's like, oh, it's a tough life, kid. It's gonna cost you relationships and family and friends, but if you got to do it, you got to do it. And he goes, let me give you a piece of advice. He goes, make your movie for $3,000. Don't use your friends, use real actors. $3,000 is what you need to do. And I thanked him, and I thought, man, that guy's crazy. I can't use real actors for $3,000. And it seemed impossible. And now I'm that guy, right? I'm
Yeah,
him. I'm like, make your movie for $3,000, man.
me too. Me too. So we'll talk a little bit about marketing. So, like, let's say you're doing well, we talked a little bit about romance, so you have a romance novel, like, and you have your pen name. How do you find that audience? How do you reach that audience?
Whatever kind of content you're creating, it's got to be really specific. I guess the easiest example is, say you're writing a book that's like Twilight, right? I
Hmm.
know this is kind of dated, right? That's 10 years old, but you would go and find out, who are fans of Twilight, and then market to those fans, and like, what else do they read? But in my experience, nothing is going to compare to creating content that suits an underserved market that is hungry.
Right.
So you can't. I don't care how much money you have to spend on advertising. You can't manufacture an audience out of thin air. So
Yes.
they've got to be there, and they've got to be looking for the content.
Really good point, because there's so
Yeah.
many filmmakers out there that they make their movies because this is the movie I want to make, and then they start thinking about marketing, and they're
Mhm.
like, well, how do I market this now? I mean, I get people comments on my channel all the time like, I made my movie, and like, how do I get it to people? And I'm like, you didn't think about that before you shot the movie?
And I think one of the things you could do now is, create a website for your movie, create a landing page, run some ads on the key art, and get
Hmm.
people to see, will they even click on an ad to come to that page. You can track that page. You can use a Facebook pixel. You can see you can put an email sign up for information when it comes out. But that'll let you know, like, you might run a campaign with key art that nobody clicks on.
Right.
you know
Yeah, I mean, you can start your A/B testing at the very
yeah.
beginning. Yeah, I mean, it's something I started doing just over the last year. I'll have a
Mhm.
documentary idea. I'll whip up a one sheet right away, and I'll do $1 a day
Yeah.
Facebook ad, and I'll just start targeting different, I'll A/B test different market segments, and then see what performs, and then at the end of 2 or 3 months, while I'm working on other stuff, I'll get those results back. Then I'm like, okay, this is a go.
That's a fantastic way to do it.
Because
Yeah.
I have done it even in the last year, where I've shot one, I finished it, and I didn't really do that first, and then I start trying the marketing, and I would say probably maybe 7 out of 10 times those don't perform.
Yeah.
I always tell people if you make 10 movies, 5 are either they're going to fail or they're going to just barely break even. Actually, 5 is probably generous. We'll say 7 are going to fail or break even. 1 or 2 will make a little bit of money and 1 will do really well.
Yeah.
Just in averages.
Mm-hmm. And I think, that's the key in our current marketplace is get as many at bats as possible.
And it's difficult for artists because everybody out there, we want to make these masterpieces. We want it to be the best thing ever, and we want it to be huge. But and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But you have to also realize that those ones that make it huge, the Christopher Nolans and the whoever else, those guys won the lottery. Like I'm not saying they're not talented, but it's not a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
It's not
that's a fantastic way to put it. They won the lottery. As well as I do that there's a million talented people in Los Angeles running around that are every bit as good as the people that you see on TV on a regular basis. But for whatever reason, they didn't get their shot or the timing wasn't right. You can't discount luck.
Yeah.
But what you can do is create more opportunities for luck.
Like moving forward, do you have ambition to get back and do more films now, or?
I keep saying that I've got one more film in me because I don't feel like I have made the last thing that I can hang my hat on. Like Spirit Camp is always going to be my baby, but it's like in my soul, it's like I got one more, but I just don't know how that's going to manifest right now because
Gotcha.
Today, right now, I have no desire to go through that. It's hurting cats as much as I love working with actors and working with people. You're getting 25 people together and trying to get them all going in the same direction at the same time and putting up with a lot of different, headaches and production issues. And I don't want to do it right now.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And we get spoiled, like especially as I've moved away from larger productions and I'm not doing as many narrative features, and I still like have the desire to do more narrative features, but man, I use COVID as an excuse right now. Like I'm not getting on set because of COVID, but truth of the matter is I can make more money and I can make the movies faster. And like, I don't know. I probably will get back into it. Well, I will get back into it, but I don't know when.
Yeah. It's tough because, you've got other options. And like you said, you can make more money faster doing something else. If I do it again, I'm going to write simpler. It's not going to be as complex. It's not going to be 8 pages of monologue that requires, really good acting. It's going to be simple and it's going to be with my friends.
Right.
And it's going to be devoid of any kind of expectation. I know we were talking about market, but this would be just me and my buddies going out and making a movie with no stress.
Yeah, no, I feel the exact same way. Like when I move back into narrative features, I'm going to do narratives, maybe once every couple of years, and I'm going to do it because this is something I want to make. And if it doesn't land like financially, whatever, I have a whole other income, several other income streams now.
I just saw an interesting quote from Schwarzenegger where he said, "Never make a living from your passion." Because if you make a living from your passion, then you'll have to compromise your passion at some point. And I thought, you know what, that's a good thing to do. You got make your living somewhere else and then come to film, and then you can do whatever you want. You don't have to worry about the marketplace or investors or any of that kind of stuff. So there's 2 sides to the coin, and kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. What do you want out of it? Do you want to make money or do you want to express yourself? So, and I think the more honest you can be with yourself about why you're creating, the happier you're going to be long term.
I always ask this question. It's not 100% applicable here, but it's a hypothetical. So we'll just kind of go with it. If I were to show up on your doorstep with $50,000 to give to you to make a feature film that you wanted to make money with, what kind of film would you make? And like, how like broadly would you use that budget?
The first thing I would do is start doing market research. I mean, I would go and like, what are people, and that's the hard thing about filmmaking is because you can't look at the box office and draw any kind of meaningful conclusions from that on an independent level. And I don't know what the good way to figure out what people are wanting.
Like I could tell people, but you basically have to work with, either a distributor or a marketplace on a past film that
Mhm.
shares that kind of information with you.
Right. Exactly.
And I mean, it's kind of a chicken and the egg situation for new filmmakers because you're not going to have that.
I mean, I think in that scenario, maybe I'd take a little bit of budget and go to AFM
Mm,
and talk to as many sales agents and distributors about what's happening there just to get a sense. Then I would make a very focused genre specific film and make sure I hit all the expectations. So, if it's grindhouse horror, make sure I hit all those moments and I've got all the kills that they want to see and whatever. And then I would probably take half the budget and use that for production and the other half for post and marketing.
right.
What's the old rule? It's always going to take twice as much money and three times as long as you think it's going to take.
Right.
So kind of plan accordingly. I don't think I would spend any money getting any type of name into a project of that
Right.
budget range anymore. I mean, we've all done it.
Hmm.
And you're like, oh, let's put the name on the box cover. And in my experience, what does that really do for you? Nobody's going to pick up the movie because you got some
Yeah.
not A-lister
Yeah.
in the film. It's just not. So I would save that money. And I guess maybe if you came to me with 50 grand, I'd find a way to make 5 films out of that. It would
Right. And
probably be,
that's a good answer.
yeah, yeah.
It's one last thing I wanted to talk about that you just mentioned, fulfilling, hitting the benchmarks of the genre.
Mhm.
And it sounds like you really like that came into focus for you with the writing. Like,
Absolutely. I mean, my mindset shifted completely after I got 7 or 8 books in. Call me a slow learner, but
yeah.
it really started to sink in after Rouge Strike that what I think is cool, nobody else thinks is cool.
Mhm.
And then as the books went along and I started doing better in sales, the more that I gave people what they wanted, the better the books did. And then so I got to a mindset of like, how do I bring myself and my creativity to something somebody else wants? So instead of going off and doing, oh, I'm going to express myself this way, no, how do I express myself within the confines of this genre? Even to this day, when I start out to write a book, I've got a list of like, I know what people in this genre are expecting, and I need to hit that every time.
Mhm.
And I think you do that by watching the content in that genre or reading books in that genre and saying and taking notes like where are these points coming. And I think that's really really key. Data is huge now, and you look at the streaming platforms, they know how many people click on a landing page, they know how many people watch, they know exactly when they stop watching,
Mhm.
and it gives them a lot of information about viewer preferences. And I think as independent filmmakers, we don't have that data, but we sort of have to intuit that data
Yeah.
of when am I losing the audience, and when are they on the edge of their seat. And I think that's probably the most important thing that you can do as a filmmaker is to understand where your audience is at every second during that movie, because we all make money the longer that they stay on the platform.
There's a kind of a broader point that kind of all this brings up too is like as filmmakers, we can learn a lot more about filmmaking and marketing films by looking at other mediums.
Mhm.
Like I have learned more about like how to retain an audience, how to keep your attention up, how to hook them, how to bring the audience to something from doing this YouTube channel
Mhm.
than I did in like 10 years of making movies.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
you, yeah, and you can apply it Like, people talk about Amazon a lot and CER and, whatever goes into it and, whatever. But like, one of the factors that, at least that I believe is a major one, is retention.
Hmm.
And once you start looking at it that way and not just, hey, I'm just going to play my movie and hope people like it. Like, where are people clicking off? How long are they watching it? Like, are you losing them at 5 minutes? Are you losing them at 30 seconds? Like,
Hmm.
how do I keep them longer? Adding things into the movie to pique interest or to, foreshadow things to come, not just telling a story A to B.
Yeah, I think that is the single most important metric right now.
Well, look, Kerry, it was really good talking to you. Where if do you have a personal website, like a Kerry?
Yeah, well, it's my photography website. You can go to kerrybeyer.com and kind of see what I used to do.
All right, man.
Cool. Yeah, it was great talking to you, man.
Kerry really likes to keep his anonymity when it comes to his pen names. That said, I've read a few books in one of his series, and they are very good. If you want to learn a little more about self-publishing, check out a few of Craig Martell's self-publishing books. I'll drop a couple of links in the description below. I've read a few of them, and trust me, they have a lot of good marketing info that really directly translates into indie film marketing. So check them out if you get a chance. But whatever you do, keep making movies.